Hello, uglies. Welcome back to my channel. My name is Jer. We're going to be talking about the Boulet Brothers Dragula Season 5. This is Episode 8. Humongus horror. Drag. Filth. Horror. All that. Yeah, y'all get it. This episode this is an episode that happened. You know, I feel like at this point, I'm complaining a lot about each episode. And I promise, I'm not. I just feel underwhelmed almost every week, and I can't help but feel like this is not the most ideal top 5. I'm not the Boulets. I don't know what their vision is. They're free to do whatever it is that they want to do. And however it is that they want to run their program, they're more than able to do. And on one hand, I really want to support that. And I really want to be like, yes, you do what your vision is. On the other hand, as a viewer of this production, I'm not super on board with how it's going, and I find myself entertained, but not quite for the reasons that I want to be. I want every episode to be devastated by what's going on, and I just don't feel devastated every time. I just sort of feel like, oh, that was fun. I just can't help feel like this cast that's here is not ideal. I am conceptualizing a sort of rework of how maybe the season could have been different, trying to decide how I want to word all that. And I'm really looking forward to that, and I hope you enjoy that whenever it drops. And hopefully there's no yelling. I can't handle it. Let's actually get into it. So at the start of the episode, we have the typical who's here, who deserves to be here, why should someone have been exterminated, why does someone deserve to stay, typical round table scenario that happens every episode. Most of the conversation topics tend to kind of circle around Orc. People are wondering if Orc's very specific drag style is conducive to what the Boulets need, to what a winner would require. Fantasia is a little delulu about what Orc is doing and feels like what she's delivering is more on the mark and more on the nose than what Orc is doing. And I have a lot of feelings about that, which are in complete disagreement, but I'm not the Boulets, so it doesn't matter. My opinions are the zero. There's a lot of conversation about the showmance and how much that's distracting Orc over Neo. You know, I'm glad to see at least a showmance that seems healthier than at least the last one was. It felt like the Astrid, Hoso, Abora thing just was so messy and immature and really went in a lot of ways it didn't need to go. So I'm glad to see something that looks at least semi-healthy. They really seem to like each other. They enjoy each other's company. They are vibing pretty hard, and you know, they're having a good time. I love that for them. I loved the little moments that we had of giving something that was important to their relationship to Neo from Orc. I really loved that they had this gift exchange. They talked about what each other meant. I really enjoyed this dialogue of what's gonna happen next. We don't know what's happening next, but whatever it is, they're excited to do it together and for whatever the journey brings to them. And I think that's cool. The actual challenge this week is a kaiju challenge. And when I say I was so excited, and then I just sort of felt like, oh, it's sort of how I felt last week and the week before. I don't think there's been a super exciting floor show all season. Well, no, that's not true. I feel like Terror in the Woods was really strong. I felt like Garbage Pail Kids was interesting, but a lot of people missed the mark. I thought it was cool for a different assignment. I thought the Gods of Rock was really cool. There were some moments, but a lot of them have just sort of felt underwhelming in a lot of ways, and this was no exception for me. I loved the Fright Feat this week, which was a rage room, and I really love when the Boulets just give them something to channel their energy into that's not really a fright feat. It's more just like, hey, go out and do something, you know, be silly, paint your face, get a chance for immunity, go and hit a bunch of crap until you feel good enough to work. I thought that was cool. I think at this point in the competition, it's important to have something to stress relief from, and I think it helped them kind of refocus on what they needed to do. Let's get into the runway, because I want to talk about the Boulets outfit. They looked like Ariana Grande as a monster, and I loved that. This hair was perfect. The outfits were really cute. I enjoyed what was going on visually with the Boulets this week. And then the actual set, the set was really cool. I love that they decorated the entire stage with this big city and allowed them to just go ham on it and destroy it. The soundscape was incredible. Whoever produced that did such a great job of intertwining all of these moments where it really felt like a horror movie, a suspense monster movie where everybody is in panic and disarray. It felt that way. It was cool. It got me in the mood. I was super excited. What I wanted from this challenge, what I wanted to see as a viewer from this challenge, was there was this arcade game called Rampage. It was like in the Pizza Huts, and you had 3 monsters you could choose from. It was like a gorilla and a Godzilla, and I don't remember what the other one was. And you could go through and destroy the city. Like, you just pulverized it, stomping on people. I think they made a movie out of it with The Rock, and I heard that it wasn't good. That was what I was expecting. I wanted Rampage. That's what I wanted. And that's not what we got. Neohudu came out first and was in this sort of snake dragon type outfit. I thought the shoulder things were interesting, but I didn't quite understand what it had to do with the monster, unless it was like a 3-headed monster, in which case I wanted the dragons to be going forward. This was one of the first Neohudu looks that I really thought, oh, this kind of missed the mark. I feel like every other week, she's always been really on top of it. But the actual snake dragon part of the body was so cool, so intricate. It looked slimy, and I don't know how she did that. It just had this element that was wow from the waist down, but then there was this whole element of skin that was showing, and I thought the whole point was to avoid being humanoid. And it felt too humanoid to me because it almost felt like there was this person's body, and then they had dragon shoulder pads, and then were a snake. I didn't quite understand how it all worked together. And then with the fuzzy arms, something also felt wrong. So I don't know, just all together, it didn't quite feel up to the part that I expect from Neohudu. Then Blackberry was next, and okay, I'm gonna be honest, this was everything. This was so cool for Drag Race. And that's how I felt about a lot of things this season, is that this feels like a Drag Race runway. If this came out, this silhouette with this big hair and these wings and the movement and the way that the body proportions are, this would be undoubtedly a winning look for like a monster look or a wing look or a bug look. It could literally be so many things. It was super versatile, but I didn't feel horrified by it, and I didn't feel grossed out by it, and I didn't feel like it was a scary monster. It felt like something cutesy. Like it almost felt a little campy, like Sailor Moon monster, but that wasn't really the prompt. The prompt was kaiju. If this was just like a monster, show it in your perspective, and it didn't have to be a kaiju, I think this could have been a top look, if not even a winner, just because of what she was doing. But it just didn't really work with the prompt. And then for Throb, I really, really loved the presentation. I loved his explanation of what it was and why he chose to do a femme character. I just didn't know what it was. I felt like the dark light didn't really help. It made more sense when it was in the light. A sort of mutated bat Godzilla football player, kind of. I don't know what it was supposed to be. That's my biggest question mark. I don't know what it is. It's a monster, yes, but I don't know what kind of monster. I don't know where it came from, and I don't know why it came from there, but I think with this whole story, I wanted not only Rampage, but I wanted Cloverfield. I wanted that vibe. I wanted a really intricate, cool story with something creepy and horrifying that really just made me go, what is that? What is that? Is it going to destroy the city? And this was cool. I just didn't really get what it was. And I feel like I'm being really harsh this episode, and I'm not meaning to, but I was kind of bummed. And then also the presentation of like having sex with all the buildings and licking them and being really sexual. I didn't understand what that had to do with being a horrified, mutated monster that wants to kill all humans. I will say though, that tail was lit. That tail was so good. And I mean, it was a top look for that tail only. And then we had Crustacean Queen Fantasia. This like tick lobster creature. I don't know what it was supposed to be. I didn't get monster from it. I definitely got mutated. So on that, I hit the mark. The arms moving in sync was perfect. I loved that detail, and that made it at least passable, but it still really missed the mark. Like, if this was Kaiju Challenge, Fantasia was somewhere over here. And I didn't understand how it had anything to do with the prompt, because I didn't feel monstrous vibes from it. I felt like, this is like a mutated bug, but I agreed with the critique that it almost felt like something that would be called to stop the monsters, not necessarily the monster that was rampaging. And then we have the final look, which was my winner, and this was Orkgotik's look. I don't know what this is, and this time, I don't care, because it looks horrifying. This looks like a weird, gross creature. It's giving Cloverfield. It was, to me, giving like a Resident Evil liquor, especially with the tongue hanging out. That was such a nice detail. Because when you think about a kaiju, it's this mutated, bigger than life creature that already exists in the wild potentially and just got blown up. So this almost, to me, it looks like a dog or something that lost its flesh, became super overgrown, and now wants to destroy everything. It was cool. The way that Ork came out with the Club Kid shoes as the hands was such a nice detail, because Ork has been read all season about those Club Kid shoes. The spikes and the color, everything was so nice. I don't even want to nitpick this because it was so good, and it was the only thing that really hit the assignment for me. Besides Blackberry, who still was too cute to be a kaiju. This was the only one that hit the mark. It felt like a kaiju to me. It felt like I would see this in a film destroying Manhattan. I could totally see this in a sci-fi horror film, a big monster, sort of like Cloverfield, and I loved it. This was my favorite look that I think Ork has done all season, probably next to the Bat. Those two were really good. And I'm really glad that Ork won this challenge. I think it was super deserved, and I'm glad that Ork has a spot in the final 3. But that brings us to the deliberations. This was supposed to be a hack off too, because it's to get you to 3. So that means there's still supposed to be 2 that are supposed to get chopped off. The most likely person in my head to get the chop would be Fantasia. Fantasia should have, in my opinion, been exterminated many episodes ago. I feel like a lot of the disappointment that I feel towards these runways is the fact that Fantasia is still there, and Fantasia and Blackberry have consistently missed the mark, and up until this point, Cynthia's really missed the mark multiple times, and Jay was missing the mark a couple times. So like, all of these contestants that are making up a huge chunk of the cast are missing the mark, and I feel like Ork has missed the mark a lot up until now. This was one of the first that Ork really got it. And so for me, I said I felt if other candidates were here, say Onyx on Dix, who has been posting all of her looks, and they've all been immaculately to the challenge, would each runway feel as disappointing if there was at least 2 people who were getting it each week? Because I feel like it alternates. One week, Ork gets the challenge. Another week, Neo gets the challenge. Another week, Blackberry gets the challenge. And they're the only ones. If there was 1 or 2 other people that were with them, that were understanding the assignment, would it all seem so disappointing? Would it cast more light on the others who are just not doing it the way that we expect them to? There's not a right or a wrong way to do drag. There's not a right or wrong way to do a challenge, unless it's a Nosferatu beach party and you come as an anglerfish. So like, I don't know. It's sort of like when Louisiana Purchase was in and she was consistently missing the mark, but was doing it in such a uniquely Louisiana way. Still wasn't right, and still should have probably been discussed a little more that she wasn't doing it right. But if there were 3 people like Louisiana doing completely off-mark looks, it really sheds a light on feeling like the cast that made it to this point was not correct. And that's how I feel watching this again. I really think that there are 3 people here that could have been swapped out, that could have been exterminated in a different order so that others were here instead, and I think the runway would have probably been a little more interesting visually. I think it would have hit the mark better than what it did this time. I don't mean to complain so much. This is merely my opinion. I'm not the Boulets. My opinion doesn't matter. I'm just commenting on how I felt as a viewer. So they actually have to battle as their extermination, the 4 of them. Battle 1-on-1, 2-on-2, 1-on-1, I can do math, and fight each other using those big sticks, those big foamy sticks. and they beat each other to the ground. And this feels like such an odd way of determining who makes the other two spots, because one could just get there by sheer power, but might have been really underperforming all season. Like Fantasia or Blackberry could have easily taken down both Throb and Neo. If it was exactly what it was supposed to be, get them down and then hit them 3 times, and when they're hit 3 times, they're out. Both of them could have easily won, but that would have been a clear Orc win, and it would have been, in my opinion, a really disappointing final floor show. But now we get to the real tea, and that's that there's 2 weeks off before we get to the reunion. And while I understand that shows are looking at holidays and not wanting to conflict with those holidays, don't want to lose audience membership, this is a streaming show. This is a show that you can watch whenever you want to. And stopping a show for 2 weeks kills the momentum. This happened with Scream Queens. No one watched those last couple episodes because they took way too many breaks. Any show I've ever interacted with that was on a streaming program that took extended breaks because of a holiday or what have you, lost half their viewership by the end. Nobody cared anymore because they found something else to attach to. And with so many shows right now, drag related, I worry that no one will care about the Boulet brothers Dragula in 3 weeks when that finale happens. When the reunion happens, only the diehards who really care about the show are going to tune in. A lot of people feel a lot of different ways about Throb. They feel a lot of different ways about Fantasia. They're probably upset about Fantasia getting the chop. There's so many different feelings that are going on. 2 weeks is going to be enough for people to resolve whatever feeling they're having and not care anymore. Because it's not like we get to see next week how Fantasia's feeling about not being there at the reunion, how she got cut, how she's not going to go to the finale. We don't get to see that next week. We don't get to see who the other one was that was supposed to get cut. We find out in 2 weeks, and people might not care to wait 2 weeks. And I have a feeling there's 2 stories that are going in my head about what happened and why they only cut one. One, I think they did an ending where they cut Throb. And I think they realized after the fact that they don't want to do that. But they did not want to eliminate both Blackberry and Fantasia in the same episode because the optics of that would not be good. Even though they both have really missed the mark many times. They've been doing drag their way, they've been doing Dragula their way, but they've missed the mark. But the optics, especially with all the conversation about the microaggressions, especially from Throb, especially from Orc, might not look good PR-wise for them. So if they wait and then give a justification why maybe they're eliminating Blackberry at the reunion, it might come off a little bit easier to swallow. That's theory 1. Theory 2 is that they knew if they just knocked out both of them and took them both out, when they finally got to the reunion episode, there wasn't really much reason for anybody to tune in. There's more reason to tune in if you think that maybe your fave might get chopped. If you think that maybe they might not make it to the end of the episode. If you think they might not make it to the finale. You've got more of an incentive, and I think maybe that was those 2 thoughts were there of why they didn't chop both. They only chopped one to make it a top 3. But I really do think that the momentum is just going to get ruined by this extended break. And I don't understand what Shudder was thinking by allowing this to happen. Because yes, it's Christmas Eve. Yes, it's New Year's Eve. But what a better time to watch something like Dragula. Especially for a show that is made for queer people. It's not made for straight people like Drag Race, who are in sort of the underground, the alternative drag scene, who are interested in the sort of darker side of drag, who don't really have a lot. They like that alternative drag because it's not homogenized and canned for an audience that everybody else has, which means that those queer people are probably not spending a ton of time with other people. Maybe they're found family, maybe they're chosen family, maybe they're not going out at all, maybe they're just staying home and watching their comfort show. And so to stop a show that's meant for underground queer kids during a tumultuous time like the holidays, where a lot of young queer people who don't really have a lot, family-wise, network-wise, having something to grasp onto is enough to help them get through how dark that holiday makes them feel. And so I wish that the Boulets had fought more. I don't know if that was even possible, because it's crazy to me that this break is happening. I feel a lot of ways about it. I feel really passionate about this. Anyway, enough with that. I am so curious what y'all's thoughts were. If you liked this challenge, let me know. If you disagree with my thoughts, hey, let me know in the comments respectfully, because I'm so curious. I can't be the only negative Nancy around here who just didn't really like this floor show and only liked Orc and thought everybody else deservedly was in the bottom, because I do. But I've also thought many weeks in a row that everybody should have been out for extermination just because they missed the mark so bad. But let me know what your thoughts are in the comments below. I will see you in 2 weeks for the reunion. Goodbye, uglies. Hey, thank you so much for watching. If you liked the video, make sure to click that like button. And if you want to see more, hit subscribe. Goodbye.